Hi, everyone. We are back with another Risk Insurance Dialogues interview. Today, I'm very excited. We have Sam Carney here. He is a director of claims in the insurance industry. So thank you so much, Sam, for joining me today.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Of course. And to get us started, can you kind of give a brief summary of who you are and a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I've been working in property claims insurance for about 22 years now. The first 16 years with a large carrier in various roles. And then about 6 years ago, I moved over to a MGA, which is a managing general agency, which has given me a lot of look at the market from a different perspective. So more on the excess and surplus side, outside of what you typically think of as a big insurance carrier. So it's been an interesting journey on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to really kind of dive into later on in the interview a breakdown of what those specific like parts of the insurance industry are like, because I think people have a lot of questions about, the MGAs, what's the difference between an MGA, a carrier, a TPA. So I'm really excited to dive into that. But so for our first question, I wanted to talk about professional designations in the insurance industry. I know you have several. How important do you think that they are? And which ones would you say in particular have had the most impact on your career?
Yeah, I do think they have an importance. They can be helpful in several ways. I There are, like you said, there's a ton of different ones out there. If I was to start over, I would focus on either the AIC, the Associate in Claims, or the CPCU, and there's a few reasons for that. It's if you look at uh, job descriptions or they're looking for prerequisites, a lot of times you'll see the CPCU or the AIC on there. Um, I personally, like when I'm hiring candidates, I I'm not looking for an insurance designation. I'm more looking for their experience. So I think sometimes that can be a little overstated. So I wouldn't let something like a prerequisite like a CPCU keep you from applying or keep you from pursuing something. It could get you a little step up. It could be something to talk about. I do think they're great courses for giving you a base in overall insurance knowledge, but they're not going to take the place of the actual experience that you've had and the work that you're doing. Um, Another nice thing is if you have to have adjusters or producers license, a lot of times those will take the place of some of the continuing education credits or let you bypass some of the tests. So there are some benefits of it. I'm always a big proponent of uh, learning as much as you can, and it helps you see the insurance market at a broader perspective, and instead of just maybe if you're just in the claim side or the underwriting side, it lets you see some of those other aspects of it. But I I wouldn't say that they're the be all end all of anything when it comes to uh, insurance in your career.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't know that there was kind of some like crossover between continuing education and the CPC or the different designations. I didn't know that there was any like correspondence there, so that's good to know.
Oh
Um,
yeah, for like example, in Texas, you won't have to take a licensing test if you have a CPCU, and in New York, you would be able to bypass some of the continuing education before you take the exam. So there are some benefits to that.
okay, awesome. And now for kind of diving into what we had talked about briefly earlier, for those that are newer to the industry, how would you kind of break down the different roles within property and casualty claims? And what skills in particular do you think are really essential to succeed in those roles?
Yeah, so there are a ton of different routes and roles you can take in this. They kind of on the claim side, they all kind of base start with being an adjuster. Um, that's typically the entry role that comes in. Some people do it for a year or two and move on to another role. Some people do that as a full career. And one thing I would say about that is you do really want to start and get a good base of what that role is like as an adjuster, because that's where you learn your policy application, your customer service skills. your need for being able to handle things on your own and to be proactive in everything that you're doing. I it's there's a huge sense of urgency on some of these claims, and one of the things that I think some people struggle with is the fact that there are long timelines from like a state perspective in insurance, but the quicker that you can do things, the quicker you the more urgent you are on things. Those are things that'll help you get you noticed and moving along in your career. If you're always on top of things, that's always been a big thing. Any level that I've been in, any job I've been in this career is a sense of urgency. Um, as an adjuster, I mean, there's several roles that you can take from there. I'd say that the traditional route with a big carrier would be from an adjuster to a supervisor or team lead through the management level. Um, that's a great career. It can be a really satisfying career. It sometimes requires mobility, being able to move to different areas of the country if you actually want to move up. If you're in a smaller hub area, you might not be able to progress that much unless you're able to move. Um, or if you're in a large hub area, like if you're in the headquarters of one of where these carriers, that can be a really good career. That's not for everybody. There's also the role of being a more technical adjuster, so going the general adjuster route, all the way up to an EGA, where that's that job, it's handling all the complex losses. It comes with a lot of respect in the industry because it's someone that really knows the ins and outs of all types of claims. And it can come with a lot of heavy travel, but I know it's a very rewarding career for the people that I know. And once you get up to that EGA level, there's a lot of management aspect to that too. So those are, like, I would say, the two traditional routes, but there's also routes that I see a lot of people take where it's kind of more of a specialist route. So that could be getting into training, training other adjusters, getting into quality assurance, reviewing people's files, kind of an auditing role, but then more of a specialized role, like looking at subrogation claims. And you can kind of take those same routes through subrogation or special investigative stuff. So if you're more kind of looking at the law enforcement or the fraud areas, you've got those areas you can go into. And all insurance companies have these different units. There's a lot of attention on water mitigation specialists. It's a really specialized role, and water mitigation, water claims can get very costly. So people to be able to look at those and know how to settle them appropriately. And there's also the legal aspect of, I've known several people that have become adjusters that went back to law school and they came back and worked for insurance companies because it can be a very interesting career, and there's always litigation going on in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Um, Outside of that, you also, I mean, there's such a broader market where all these insurance companies, I work with vendors. So if it's something like you're really interested in the estimating programs, you can go work for one of the vendors that creates those, or um, mitigation bill review or other types of bill review programs. Engineering firms always need good people that know the insurance uh, claims process. And then all of those companies, if you're more interested on the sales side or the technology side, they're always pushing the needle on those types of things over there. So it's a really wide. I wouldn't limit yourself to just that specific role. That's kind of the traditional role of adjuster, supervisor, manager. There's so much out there to look at.
And I think that's another really great thing about the insurance industry is that, if you like or whatever you're passionate about, there's probably a role that coincides with that, and I think that's one of
Absolutely, yeah,
the things with insurance in particular.
yeah. It's really kind of its own ecosystem, its own economy, where it has pretty much every role you can think of involved with it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And now, kind of moving on to that ecosystem, I know it can be, as I said earlier, kind of confusing with the MGAs, carriers, TPAs, all these different terms, acronyms. Can you explain kind of how these entities differ and how they all work together as well to kind of make the claims process run?
yeah, so it's like I said in the intro, I worked for a large carrier for 16 years to start my career. that was all in what would be called the admitted market. That's what people kind of think of when they think of insurance. So you have your big companies like State Farm or Allstate or Farmers or Travelers, those big companies that you see commercials on. Those are your admitted carriers. They write a lot of the homeowners insurance. They do some of the commercial, but it's really what you think of when you think of insurance, and that's where you kind of see your traditional career paths that I was talking about, because they have all of those pieces of the insurance business. They have the adjuster roles, the management roles, all of those specialist roles that I was talking about earlier. They will have all of those in house, and that's a it's something, if you're interested in staying with one company and moving up through that company, that's probably the best route to go, is with one of those larger carriers that are on the admitted side. There's also the excess and surplus world, mostly referred to as E&S, where you'll see a lot more of your specialized insurance, some of your niche programs. It's where so really the ecosystem over there is, there's large capacity providers, sometimes referred to as carriers on that side, which are most of the time reinsurance companies. So the big reinsurers, if such as Renaissance Re, different very large companies, a lot of them based in Europe, that put money into the market for other companies to place insurance. So they'll place insurance through large brokerage firms, or they'll place them through MGAs, a managing general agency, which is where I work. So what those firms are doing is working to return a capital, or working to for return on capital for those reinsurers. So they have their own underwriting functions, they have their own claims functions, they have their own product functions, and they'll place they'll place that business, and then that's where the claims comes in. So most of that business, most of those claims are worked by TPAs, so third party administrators. There's some very large companies out there like Sedgwick and Crawford, Peninsula, that handle a lot of claims for these reinsurers and these brokerage firms and MGAs. And those firms work a lot like a traditional carrier, but it's more of a big claims organization. So you'll have one of the things I wanted to mention, like they'll call things different than what you'll see on a large carrier. So you might be called an adjuster by a large carrier, but it could be an account manager, or a TPA advocate, or a claims advocate. There could be several different terms that they use for what is essentially the same role. So that would be something that, if you're looking at that, if you're ever on like LinkedIn or looking for a job and you think, well, that's not really what I do, or that's what, really read the description, and it could actually be a role that fits your skills. It just is called something different by all the different entities that are out there. So those TPAs, they do a lot of the claims work. So you'll have mostly account managers or desk adjusters, but they also have their leadership roles that they work directly with the MGAs or the brokerage firms or these reinsurers. They'll get a certain amount of authority, and if it goes over their authority, it'll roll back up to these firms. So there's that level of MGA in there that they kind of act like a small insurance firm. And one of the things I like about working at an MGA is they're typically smaller companies, and you get a lot of exposure to different units within that company. So you may work in claims, but you work closely with underwriting, or you work closely with product. If you see like something that might need to be changed in a policy, you work closely with the IT firm. So it's a lot more. It's kind of the large company condensed, so you're all working together, because everything moves a lot quicker in those roles. Not all MGAs have designated claims teams, but a lot of them are starting to get that. So it's a good way to get in with a smaller company where you kind of get exposure to all the different things that are going on in the insurance world. With a large carrier in the claims side, you don't really see the stuff that's going over on the underwriting side. So if you want exposure to some of those other things, you might look at what a managing general agency, look at some careers on that. And then above that is your reinsurers or your large capacity providers. Now, all of those firms, they're really focused on the underwriting side and on the profit side, but with all of that, there is a claims component to it. So they all have claims teams where their major role is the oversight of the MGAs, the oversight of the TPAs to make sure claims are being handled appropriately. So they don't look at every single claim that's going on, but they look at some of the larger claims. They set some of the rules of the program. So those type of roles, it's claims from a higher level, but you're really providing direction below, giving authority to different firms that work for you. So those things are like a TPA oversight manager, a claims advocacy manager, and those are things that you'll see in the market that you're not really sure what they are, but they really fit into the role. It's the nice thing about, and I'll go back to, like, most people start as an adjuster. The stuff that you learn as an adjuster really rolls into a lot of these different positions. So getting that good base of knowledge as an adjuster and figuring out where you want to go really is helpful as you go into these other positions and get to know the insurance claims market.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I think a lot of the things that I learned as an adjuster, I still use every day in my current role. So it
For
definitely
sure.
is a good foundation. And for our last question to wrap things up, I wanted to ask, what's a piece of advice that you would give to insurance professionals that are looking to grow their careers? I know as the industry kind of goes on, we're bringing in lots of new people, trying to interview and get a lot of young talent in. And so it's maybe even becoming more competitive in a way. What is a piece of advice that you would give someone who's looking to grow their career?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of opportunity out there. I think you've probably seen articles about, like, the insurance market, especially on the claims side, is the typical age is much higher. There's not as many people in there coming straight out of college, and we're starting to see more and more of that. And there's so many opportunities out there for growth because there is a big gap there. So getting in on the ground floor right now would be a great time to do it because you're going to have a lot of opportunity for growth. But I'll go back to, it's really, if you're just starting in it, really setting a good base and figuring out what you want to do. Like that's kind of where some of those insurance designations might come in to get you as much knowledge as quickly as possible. But really take advantage of the opportunities for, if you're one adjuster and you're offered a project to take on maybe a harder claim, or you're offered to take on a stretch project where it might not be something you really know, but you might be able to learn. So there are, like, at my current role, I have 9 different jobs. I didn't know how to do all of them right when I get them, but I just say, hey, I'll figure that out. We'll work with the different parties and take that on. So don't be afraid to jump in if it's not something you're an expert in yet, because it could be something that you get really interested in and take off with. And from a leadership capacity, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for people that will take on those roles, will be willing to fail in them, or just to ask questions. Because if you jump into a role and you ask people the right questions, I mean, it's a real good growth opportunity. So another thing I would say is, just don't if you feel like you're getting stuck in one place, there's so many other opportunities out there. I know a lot of people, there are different personalities. Some people would want to stay with one company for their entire career, but if you feel like you're getting stuck in one spot, don't think that it's just the roles in your current company. We've talked about some on this, there's such a wide ecosystem out there. So always be willing to look out there and see what there is, and be curious about different roles. I'd go back to also just make sure you're reaching out on LinkedIn. Everyone's willing to talk. That's some of the best connections I've made is on LinkedIn. Is if you're not sure what a role is, find someone on LinkedIn that's in it and kind of ask them about it. You can always shoot them something. It's not going to hurt anything to ask that question. So just being curious on that and looking. And if you can kind of find a way to build out who the players are in the market. So figuring out like who the big reinsurers are, and looking at what the roles are there, who the managing general agencies are, is what those roles are. Kind of figuring out the different roles and the different players. There's always there's always opportunities out there. I see stuff come across my desk every day. So just being open to taking on new challenges, I think is very important in the insurance market and just any career you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. This was so great to hear, this perspective on all the different areas of insurance, different roles, advice. This has been so great. I've learned a lot. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, Katie, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.